Hey guys, Robin May here, and today I am going to be comparing a lot of different drugstore makeup palettes. Now this is by no means an inclusive list or comprehensive list. This is not every brand. This is not nothing specific about one certain colors or certain shades. This is just I picked palettes from a whole bunch of different brands and I've been wearing them and noting them and making all kinds of notes about, you know, wearability, how long it lasts, how good it is at blending and things like that. So we are going to get into all of these palettes today. So we're going to start with Milani, and if you are familiar with my 5 makeup looks, 1 palette series that I did about a month ago, you will certainly be familiar with the Smoky Essentials, but I also have the Earthy Elements, so they're the same, you know, essentially the same thing, just different colors. The nice thing that I love about the Milani palettes is that they came with not a sponge, but actually a 2-ended brush. So you have a dome like blending brush and then one for the color. And I just think that's nice. Granted, I don't use these a whole lot, but if I'm on the go or if I'm traveling and I don't want to bring all of my makeup brushes, I will use these and they work just fine. It's a makeup brush. What are you gonna say? So let's just start with the Smoky Essentials. So this was $10 and I got mine at a CVS. So this is Earthy Elements. It comes with 6 different shades. So most of it, as you can tell, are browns and some light cream and tan colors. You have this nice orange color, this color here. You have 2 mattes and 4 shimmers. I mean, obviously I love these palettes. I did a whole makeup look on the Milani makeup palettes. I think this one's really good for summer. I personally think that this is so close to the Too Faced peanut butter and jelly palette. Granted, there's no purple in here, but otherwise the colors, if you just get a purple pot and you have the peanut butter and jelly palette. Like, this is so close. And I'll try and insert a picture of that here just so you can compare these side by side. Work your magic.
Just an additional comment on this, I'm not at all saying that these are exact dupes or that the colors are 100% going to match from each palette. I just think that if you aren't going to spend $40 for a palette, you can instead spend $12 on this Milani palette in a purple eyeshadow pot and get very similar results. The colors are not exact, but they are close enough where I think that if you're looking for something like the peanut butter and jelly palette, that this palette might be a good substitute. Alright, back to the video.
The texture of the powders on these is very creamy, as most Milani eye products are. The mattes are probably a little bit creamier than the shimmers. They are extremely pigmented. I found that when I wore these with a primer, they went over 10 hours without creasing. There was no transfer of color. Everything stayed where it was supposed to be. There was no weird crease marks or anything like that. And the primer I did use was the Milani primer, which most of these tests with the wearability test was with the Milani primer, because that, in my opinion, is an excellent, excellent primer. But so 10 hours with a primer. Without a primer, 7 hours. So even if you forget to put primer on and you go to work, you're still gonna, for the most part, by the end of the day, have the same eyeshadow as when you left. And I think that's amazing. I really love these. And these palettes, these 6-piece palettes, they come in, I wanna say, 6 different shades. You have purples, you have the browns, you have the blues with the Smoky Essentials. There's a golden or like a nudes one. There's so much variety, and I love Milani personally. I think it's a great drugstore alternative. So the other thing is that there was not a lot of powder kickback with these at all. Whether you're swatching or using your brush, there really isn't a lot of powder. There's always going to be some because it's a powder and not a cream, so you're going to have kickback, in my opinion, no matter what product you're using, but it's not like it's unmanageable. It's not like there was fallout all over my cheek after I applied my eye makeup. Finally, pigmentation, of course, is very good for Milani. I'm going to do some swatches here for you. With the Milani palettes, another thing that you have to give them credit for is that their selection of colors is really good. And I think that they're just the color choices, even though there are only 6, you know, 6 colors in each palette, you still get the variety that you need to do an eyeshadow look. And that can obviously be seen by looking at my 5 makeup looks 1 palette videos. So overall, Milani, amazing. And for $10, I think that's right up the drugstore alley, and I think this is just really, really, really good products that I want to buy the other 4 color choices because they're just moving on. We are going to talk about another one that I have 2 of, and that's the CoverGirl. I've talked about these a lot. I've used these a lot. I have the True Naked Roses and the True Naked Nudes, and I've used these a lot. These have 8 shades each. Depending on the palette, you're going to have a different variety of mattes and shimmers. So this palette has what I would say like 3 metallic-y shimmers, which would be this one, and this last one here, which doesn't come off too much because it is a darker color. But these are definitely a metallic shimmer. You do have some other ones that are going to be like a satin shimmer. There's still a little bit of shine and glow to it. They're not 100% matte, but there's no like actual like, they're not quite this dramatic. And then you have your matte shades as well. So depending on how you want to say it, 3 to 4 matte shades and 4 to 5 shimmer shades. Obviously the colors in here are pinks and purples. You have some like more nude pinks. You have some true pinky pinks, and then you have your dark purples and purpley pinks there. These are very pigmented as well. So just to show, I mean, they're very pigmented, but I will say that when you get darker, like these colors, you know, on my finger, yes, that's really, really bold. But if I were to take their brush, which is a sponge and not an actual brush, but if I were to take their sponge and put that on my hand, I mean, it's still really pigmented, but it's just not as pigmented as the others. The texture of these, I think, are very good. They're still very soft and creamy. There is a little bit of follow and kickback with these, but again, nothing that's not manageable. I did find that they did tend to crease, not horribly, and especially since these, and that's you're putting like a really dark colors all the way in your crease, they're not that bad because the lighter colors aren't going to show as much. They did stay in place besides just the creasing in that normal area where you would get that, but they are powdery. You do have the kickback and you do get the creasing. So in comparison to the Milani, these aren't as good. However, you get more variety. You get more color choices, and you still have a good variety. I would say that I wish these were just maybe a little bit more. You don't really need 3 dark shades. I think when you put these on your eyes, you're really not getting that much of a difference in the color options. Yeah, this one's really dark, this one's kind of dark, and this one's kind of dark, but for the most part, I don't think you need it. I would rather have seen like a different, instead of like one of these colors, like a true purple, like a violet purple, and not this like lighter pinky purple. But it's certainly not bad. Now, when it comes to powderiness, wearability, and all of that, the same goes for the nudes palettes. They're creamy products. There is a little bit of powder and fallout, but again, nothing that's not manageable. It does crease in the eyes. I found that with these, with a eye primer, they do last 7 to 8 hours. Like, it still is a fairly long lasting powder when you use, again, the Milani eye primer in this case. But they are, again, this is a very good palette. You have some light colors, you have some warm and cool tone browns, and then you have this really dark brown. I almost like this palette better than the roses just because you do have a little bit more lighter colors, and I think with these, you can definitely see more of a difference in the shade when you're putting it on your eye than you can with the dark purples in the roses palette. But this one has, again, kind of a similar breakdown of the satin or shimmer versus mattes. I would say that there are 4 shimmers and 4 mattes in here. So you have a shimmer, 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 so it's every other. And I really like these. I personally love this color here in the center. It's called Fawn. This is just a perfect base color. I absolutely love it. These 2 here are perfect for just adding some definition to your crease, adding some depth without going too bold. And then you have this nice shimmer color that you can put all over your lid, and I really do like this palette a lot. I would say if I had to choose between the nudes and the roses, depending on the day and the look I'm going for, like if I could only pick one, I would probably pick the nudes. Speaking of nudes, I have the Maybelline The Rock Nudes palette. Now, this comes with 12 colors. There's a variety of lights, darks, blues. You got some gold here, some purple, you got that bright blue. So there's a wide variety of colors here. There are 6 shimmers and 6 matte shades. These I found to be fairly blendable. I did not have that much issue. However, they are definitely powdery, and the darker you go, the more powdery it's going to get and the more fallout you're going to get, which isn't good. I would definitely suggest, if you're using this palette, do your eyeshadow before you do your foundation. I don't always do it that way, so sometimes if I do my foundation first and I use this palette, I have to be really careful to make sure to avoid fallout. The other thing that I will say about this is pigmentation is not consistent throughout the palette. There are going to be some shades that are super, super pigmented and some that are not. For example, the blue one. It is not that pigmented, especially when you put it on your hand. And I don't think that this is blue. Like if you look at the color in the pan and the color that's on my hand, that's not the same color. So what I would say for these is most of these are not very pigmented. I kind of just swatched a whole bunch on my hand. The most pigmented one is the darkest one, which is the black. You definitely have to be careful when applying that, because I found that I would take, you know, you're going along, you're doing your eye makeup, you find that you need more product to get the color that you want, and then you do the same thing with the black. Don't do that. You're gonna get way too much product. And same with this black glittery shade. It's kind of the same thing. You're gonna get a little bit more than what you were expecting. But most of these products are not very pigmented. However, they're certainly buildable. I had no problem, you know, adding more product definitely added more color. So they are buildable, and you can increase the color output by adding more product to your eyes. The one thing I do want to mention with these is that you have these 2 glitter shades, and I'm going to call them glitter and not shimmer because there's literally pieces of glitter in them. So here's this gold glittery shade. And yes, it is shimmery. You can see shimmer, but there's really just flecks of glitter in it, and it's not very gold. Like if this was actually the color, I think they would be beautiful, but all you get is like this muddy brown and some sparkle in it, and I just wasn't pleased with it. Same with the black. It's a little different because it's black, so it looks a little cleaner, but there's actually just flecks of glitter in there, and that's all it is that makes it shimmery. The shade itself, I would still describe as a satin or a satin matte. So these, without primer, these lasted for 5 hours and there was creasing. With primer, they probably lasted for 6 or 7 hours and there was not creasing at that time. I don't think that this is something that you would have to have. There's so many dark colors in here, and especially since all of these, even though this looks like a really pretty blue and this looks like a really pretty like purplish, dark purple color, they don't come across that way. They come out really muted and just not very vibrant in colors. Now, these shades here I do like. I think I probably use these the most just because they're more wearable. But I don't think that this is a palette, again, like the CoverGirl palettes that you would need to rush out and buy. Yes, this has a fair amount of color choices in them, and I know they have different kinds. You don't have, this is the Rock Nudes, but they have they have other shade choices as well with like the Milani. There's a whole bunch of these. So maybe it's just this palette, but I was really not impressed. All right, 2 more, and this one that I'm going to talk about next is by Hard Candy, and this is called It's Raining Men. I used this in, I know, a couple of my tutorial videos. These are straight up shimmers. There are no mattes in here. Everything is a shimmer product. Now, I personally like shimmer. I like shimmer. If you don't like shimmer, don't get this palette. I mean, they're not super shimmery when you wear them, but there's no matte options. If you want a matte option, then just don't get this palette, otherwise you're going to be disappointed. Most of these are pigmented, but it's kind of the same with the Rock Nudes palette. The darker you go, the less pigmented they're going to be, minus some of those that were too over pigmented. But you have some really nice colors. So you have that purple and silver color. And that silver I think is gorgeous. That purple is pretty too. It's not as pigmented, but it's pretty pigmented. I don't know if you can see, but there's definitely powder. Like I'm trying to smooth that out. Can you see that? There is definitely more powder to these. They don't apply as smooth on the eye. They're very soft to the touch, but they do have a lot of powder, I think, because they are so soft and creamy. One thing I will say is that I absolutely love this shade here, this like orange shade. I think this is just beautiful. I wish, just by my preference, I just wish there was a little bit more gold and a little bit less orange. But I think these are really good eyeshadows, and I think you have, if you're looking for a bold palette, you found it. You have so many bright colors. You have greens, red, oranges, blues, purples. Like there are so many bright colors, but then you still have a nice highlighter shade or blending shade or transition shade. You have a lot of different pairings, so you could wear blue with cream, like this tannish cream, or blue with silver. You could get a completely different effect depending on how you pair your colors together. So I think this is really good. I will say, obviously, like with any color, if you apply this with your fingers, you're going to get a lot more pigmentation than if you apply it with your brush. With primer, these only lasted 6 hours without creasing. After that, you did get a little bit of crease, and I think that's because of the powdery consistency of them. Because they are so creamy, they do just kind of move a little bit. It also does not come with a brush. It just comes with 2 little sponges, which works depending on the go, but when you're applying the color with a sponge, so this is 2 coats with a sponge for this dark green color. So I think you get a lot more color when you use your fingers, which again is the case for most shadows, but you do get a little bit more color and a little bit more of that sparkle and metallic-y shimmer when you use your fingers than if you were to use a brush or sponge. Overall, I do enjoy this palette. I like having just something with all of these colors, and I think the case is really cute. You got like this faux leather and these little metallic pieces. This is a pretty sturdy case. I'm getting makeup all over the place. Okay, finally we have the Wet n Wild palette in Quartz Center. So these are it's a purple palette, as you can see. I have mixed feelings about this palette. This is awesome. This is unnecessary. Why do I have 4 black grays? Why? Why? I don't get it. And some are shimmer and some are matte, but it is not necessary. But I think this purple one is pretty, the dark purple is necessary, I think, if you're including it here. But I do not need these. Maybe one. Maybe one. That is definitely the biggest issue that I have with this. I feel like I wasted half my money on colors that are the same or I'm just never gonna use. So I really do like these colors on the lighter side and the more purple side of the palettes. This color here, beautiful. I think this is just the prettiest, like orchid purple pink. It's a purpley orchid, I guess you could say, or like a lilac color. As I see lilacs on my door, that this looks just like. I think this is a really pretty color. This color here, not super impressed. I thought it was gonna come off really nice, but it just comes off kind of blah. It's not super pigmented. That is one thing that I will say about these shades, is that they are not very pigmented. However, they are buildable. So again, you can increase your color. Again, using a pencil, using your finger or using a wet brush will give you a little bit more of color as well. But I do think that these shades are they're really nice. And you have your white, your kind of like brownish pink, you have your bright purple, you have then your more muted purples, and then you have your crease purple. And I just think they're very nice. They are, for the most part, all of them are going to have a little bit of shimmer. Some are more shimmery than others. Like these 2 are definitely more shimmery than these 2. But I do think this is a good palette. Of course, this Wet n Wild palette was probably like $6. I think you get what you pay for when it comes to this. It is, like I said, a little bit cheaper than other palettes, and the products themselves are a little bit cheaper, but they're by no means bad. The some are soft, some aren't quite as soft. This one is a little bit rough and kind of just not great. It's also not very pigmented. I don't know if you can even see that. And I'll do a close-up of this as I did with all of the others, but you do get what you pay for. And I think that if I had to choose between this palette and the True Naked Roses palette, I would almost take this one more because I like the more purpley colors. You still have these lighter shades, these lighter shades that you have in here, but then you have more true purpley pinky shades, which I just really like. So I do like this, and I do use this, and I think that it just gives a really nice springy, summery look with those bright purples in there that this just didn't have. How I would rank these, I would probably say in last place would be the Rock Nudes. I just was not blown away. The colors are too dark, they're too muddy, they're too muted. The colors, like if this was actually blue, that would be amazing. And if this was actually this gorgeous shimmery gold color, that would be amazing. But they're just not. They don't come across that way. So I just feel misled, and I just would not buy this again, which is unfortunate because I actually got two of them because I bought one and then I got one in my BeautyCon box, so I ended up giving that to my sister, and she said the same thing. They're super powdery. They're just not amazing. My fourth place, oh, guys, this is tough. I know what my top two are. I just don't know what my middle two are. Fourth place would probably be the Wet n Wild palette. As much as I love the purple colors in here, I'm so upset about all of these dark colors. It just ruins it for me. I don't know. I feel like you can buy these in another palette, probably the purple palette by Milani, and you would have the same colors and better wearability and not have all of this excess junk taking up spot in your palette. So this would be fourth place. Third place is going to be a combination of the CoverGirl True Naked palettes, the roses and nudes. Again, I would probably pick the nudes over the roses if I had to pick one. Both products are equivalent when it comes to everything else, so it really just comes down to your color choice. These are by no means bad palettes. They're just, the color choices is what knocks it down for me. If there was more variety in the color choices, like if they cut some of these in half and added different ones or something, I don't know. But that's the only reason why these aren't in my top two. What is in my top two, as my runner-up, is the Hard Candy palette, Raining Men. This is second just because I love shimmers, and these are all shimmers, and I love bold colors, and these are all bold colors, and I really like this product. And if you use it correctly, if you use your fingers, you get that pigmentation that you're really looking for. I think this is a really good palette. It blends, it doesn't last super long, but that's not a big concern for me. So this is my number two, which would make my number one the Milani palette. I'm not going to pick between these two because they're completely different. It just depends on my color choice of the day as to what one I would pick over the other, whatever I'm preferring. So I'm not going to do that, but I do think that these are by far the best drugstore palette that I have ever used. When you have a drugstore palette, a drugstore eyeshadow that lasts over 10 hours without creasing, that's impressive. That's just impressive. And that's, I think, what Milani is known for. They have these super pigmented, great products that just last a really long time. And I'm so pleased with these. I'm probably going to see if I can swap with my sister because she got the different colors, and I'm going to see if we can do a swapsies. Maybe. And again, this plus a purple, this plus a palette, or a single shot. This one just happens to be a Milani. This was one of the dollar ones that I got at the drugstore. And so this combined with this, I think, is your peanut butter and jelly, or I got this one from NYX. It's just a little bit more darker and not quite as vibrant. And you have the peanut butter and jelly palette. I really think that this is so close to that and no one's talking about it. And maybe it's just me, but I think this has so many similar shades. This. So sorry this video is forever. Apparently I'm very passionate about eyeshadow palettes. I think I worked really hard and was like really diligent about being consistent with how I applied them and what primer I was using and like watching them throughout the day to see when they creased or if they shifted or anything like that. So I hope this helps you guys figure out what palettes you're looking for. Ultimately it's going to come down to your personal preference. I mean, don't get this palette if you don't like these colors. You know, get what suits you. None of these besides the Maybelline Rock Nudes was really a big flop for me. That one, again, it really didn't do anything for me. Not anything against Maybelline. I love Maybelline. I love so many of their products. It just, that was my flop. But besides that one, none of these are bad products. If you bought any of these palettes, you would be satisfied. But I think that you'd be most satisfied with the Milani palettes, especially since there's so many different varieties that you can buy as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this helps you the next time you're considering buying a makeup palette. I know these aren't as expensive as high-end makeup palettes that can cost, you know, $40 to $45, but these still can cost nowadays $10 to $15, and that's a lot. So I hope that this helps kind of refine your search in the future and helps you guys pick out what you want. So again, leave a comment if there's something that you would like me to do, a specific brand or a specific palette that you're interested in buying but you want to know more about it first. Leave a comment below. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed watching this or you would like to see more of these kinds of Battle of the Drugstore videos. Thanks so much for watching through this entire video, and I hope you guys have a good day. Bye!